Although Melchizedek, the king-priest of Salem, is hardly discussed and remains a relatively obscure figure in the Old Testament, he plays a crucial role in showcasing the unique combination of kingship and priesthood held by Jesus. This dual honor, distinct from the roles of Israelite kings, lacks significant precedent. Melchizedek holds a significance that outweighs the limited space dedicated to him in Scripture. His name, meaning King of Righteousness and King of Salem, which is often interpreted as King of Jerusalem, contributes to his enigmatic presence. Some interpretations suggest that Salem might also means Shalom, hinting at a heavenly place. In the 3 verses detailing his life and ministry, we're introduced to Melchizedek's authority as King of Salem and priest of the God Most High. He eloquently acknowledges God as both creator and deliverer, extending a gracious gesture of bread and wine to Abram following his triumph over enemies in battle. In a reciprocal act, Abram offers a tenth of his possessions in tithes to Melchizedek, underscoring the latter's spiritual importance. The Genesis 14 story provides the most renowned narrative of Melchizedek. Their initial meeting occurs after Abraham defeats Chedorlaomer and his allies. Melchizedek, demonstrating friendship, presents bread and wine to Abraham and his fatigued men. Pronouncing a blessing in the name of God Most High, Melchizedek praises God for Abraham's victory. In acknowledgement of Melchizedek's elevated spiritual standing, Abraham reciprocates by presenting a tithe, giving a tenth of his acquired possessions to the priest. For Abraham to recognize the authority and authenticity of a Canaanite priest-king is startling and has no parallel in biblical literature. Abraham's act of paying tribute to a priest-king in Jerusalem foreshadows a future where his descendants will bring tithes to the priests ministering in the sanctuary at the Davidic capital. It is noteworthy that this priest-king offered wine and bread, alluding to the gospel sacrament of communion with the statement, "He came to prepare the table." Despite gaps in the story, the introduction of Melchizedek serves to highlight that Abraham's encounter with God through a royal priest in Jerusalem predates the Levitical priesthood and the time of David. This encounter establishes the concept of a royal priesthood in Jerusalem, a theme that will unfold throughout the biblical narrative. Let's delve into the various aspects of the enigmatic Melchizedek as depicted in the Bible. Anticipating a better king. Being the most frequently quoted psalm in the New Testament, Psalm 110 demands careful consideration to fully grasp Christ's fulfillment of the roles of king and priest. Authored by King David, the psalm is a prophetic composition intended for a future messianic figure descending from David's lineage. The psalm commences by proclaiming that this anticipated king will be bestowed with unprecedented honor, power, and authority, surpassing any human monarch before him, as he occupies the exalted position at God's right hand. David characterizes this king as the recipient of God's covenant oath, implying that his authority stems directly from God. Consequently, the king exercises God's own royal rule, leading to the subjugation of his enemies and the safeguarding of his realm and people. In light of 2 Samuel 7, we can infer that David is referring to his future descendant who will inherit the messianic legacy. God assures David that the promised descendant will emerge from his royal lineage, constructing a dwelling for the Lord and establishing dominion over the kingdom. This descendant, whom God regards as his own son, signifies a ruler destined for an everlasting kingdom. David goes on to portray this seed as a triumphant warrior, exercising dominance over adversaries. However, it's crucial to recognize that this messianic figure isn't confined to kingship alone. He also holds a priestly role in the order of Melchizedek, as explicitly stated in Psalm 110 verse 4. While Davidic kings traditionally performed priestly functions, such as leading worship and offering sacrifices, This verse elevates the priestly aspects of the Davidic dynasty to a new level. Consequently, the Davidic rulers can assert divine support for their governance over the Promised Land, fulfilling the blessing Abraham received from Melchizedek in Genesis 14, verse 18 to 20. Returning to Psalm 110, verses 5 to 6 mirror verses 2 to 3, illustrating God's relationship with the new king. While verse 1 places the king at God's right hand, verse 5 emphasizes God standing by the king, symbolizing divine protection and support. While verses 2 to 3 depict the king as the protagonist in battle, verses 5 to 7 present God as the central figure, assisting the king in overcoming enemies across the nations and the vast expanse of the earth. This significantly broadens the scope of the initial Israelite territory, signifying that God, through his ultimate Melchizedekian priest-king, triumphs over the enemies of Israel, including spiritual adversaries, on behalf of both Israel and all other nations. The eternal king, priest. In the New Testament, the author of Hebrews elevates Melchizedek to the status of a pre-incarnate Christ figure. Described as eternal, with no father or mother, and resembling the Son of God, Melchizedek is portrayed as a perpetual priest. Abraham's act of tithing to Melchizedek further affirms his greatness. Following in the footsteps of Melchizedek, Jesus emerges as the genuine King of Righteousness, Melchizedek, living a flawless life unattainable by any human. He also embodies the true King of Peace, Salem, bringing peace to the earth through his sacrificial death and resurrection. Jesus is declared a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, distinct from the Levitical lineage, thus establishing the superiority of his priesthood. Consequently, this makes Jesus the guarantor of a better covenant. His permanent priesthood, enduring forever, enables him to completely save those who approach God through him, as he continually intercedes for them. In light of this, believers can find assurance in the perfect rule of Jesus, who governs with boundless power and justice. They are also comforted by the knowledge that Jesus, as the ideal priest, ministers with infinite mercy and empathizes with their weaknesses. Through their union with Christ, believers are reminded of their Melchizedekian calling to advance his kingdom through truth and justice as members of God's royal family. Additionally, they are encouraged to serve as conduits of mercy and healing within the covenant community and to the broader world. Melchizedek and Jesus. Upon reaching the New Testament, the book of Hebrews unequivocally asserts Jesus as the ultimate king and high priest, reigning eternally from a heavenly throne. Drawing a comparison to Israel's priests descended from Aaron, who served as intermediaries between Israel and God, the author highlights the imperfections of their priesthood. Despite representing the people and offering sacrifices for sin atonement, these priests were morally flawed and required sacrifices for their own sins. Recognizing the inadequacy of this imperfect priesthood, the author emphasizes the need for something better. Enter Jesus, the anticipated priest who surpasses the temporary Levitical priesthood with an eternal one. Contrary to the line of Aaron, Jesus belongs to the order of Melchizedek, the enigmatic priest-king of ancient Jerusalem. The author underscores that Jesus did not assume the high priesthood on his own accord, but was appointed by God, designated a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. It's crucial to recall that Melchizedek's introduction lacks genealogy, birth or death references, a significant departure from the norm where priesthood legitimacy hinged on ancestry. The absence of Melchizedek's genealogy suggests that his priesthood wasn't derived from lineage, but was established to mirror the eternal priesthood of the Son of God. Similarly, Jesus' priesthood is not dictated by ancestry, but endures perpetually because he continues forever. With no mention of Melchizedek's lineage or demise, the image emerges of him eternally fulfilling the priestly role, akin to the pattern set by Jesus. As the promised royal priest-king, Jesus attains eternal priesthood through his ascension and heavenly enthronement. This eternal priesthood introduces a better hope through which we approach God, as Jesus consistently intercedes for those who draw near to God through him, embodying an enduring connection between believers and the divine.